The night was thick with the weight of secrets, the kind that fester in the shadows of a perfect life. Olivia Reeves sat in her dimly lit kitchen staring at the half-empty whiskey glass in front of her. Her reflection in the glass was fractured, distorted, a fitting representation of the life she had built. To the world, she was a woman of charm and grace, a top real estate agent with a sharp mind and a dazzling smile. Her husband Marcus Reeves was a respected attorney known for his precision in the courtroom. Together they were the kind of couple that inspired envy, successful, poised, untouchable. But perfection was an illusion, and Olivia had grown tired of playing her part. A soft vibration against the polished marble counter snapped her from her thoughts. Her phone, a message. "Nathan, I'm outside." Her pulse quickened. She downed the last of the whiskey and stood, smoothing the fabric of her silk blouse before glancing toward the front window. The sleek black sedan parked across the street was a stark contrast to Marcus's silver BMW in the driveway. Nathan Collins was everything Marcus wasn't: reckless, passionate, unpredictable. He had walked into her life when she least expected it, a client turned lover, a temptation she couldn't resist. Their affair had started in stolen moments, whispers in dimly lit hallways, hands brushing against each other as they passed. But now it had grown into something neither of them could control. She opened the door without hesitation. The cool night air kissed her skin as Nathan stepped forward, his tall frame casting a shadow over her. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice low. Olivia met his gaze, unflinching. "I stopped being sure about anything a long time ago." Nathan smirked, running a hand through his dark hair. "That's what I like about you, Liv. Always full of surprises." She stepped aside, allowing him to enter. The scent of his cologne filled the space between them, intoxicating and dangerous. As she shut the door, a sense of finality settled over her. Tonight would change everything. The house was silent save for the rhythmic ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Marcus had left early that morning, buried under court cases and legal briefings. He worked late most nights, convinced that providing for Olivia meant being absent from her. Nathan leaned against the counter, watching her. "You ever think about leaving him?" Olivia let out a bitter laugh. "Leaving isn't the hard part. It's what comes after. You're not happy, Liv. You deserve better." "Better?" she scoffed. "And what's better, Nathan? Running away with you? Living in some fantasy where we don't have to face reality?" He stepped closer, his fingers brushing her arm. "Why does it have to be a fantasy?" Before she could respond, a sound from the front door sent a jolt of fear through her. The unmistakable creak of the hinges followed by heavy footsteps. Marcus was home. Panic flared in Nathan's eyes as Olivia grabbed his wrist, dragging him toward the hallway. "Upstairs," she whispered urgently. They moved swiftly, the adrenaline thick in the air. Nathan slipped into the guest bedroom just as Marcus's voice called out, "Olivia?" She turned, her face carefully composed as she stepped back into the kitchen. Marcus stood near the door, his suit slightly rumpled, his expression unreadable. "You're home early," she said smoothly. He nodded, loosening his tie. "Long day. Thought I'd call it a night." His gaze drifted around the room before landing on her empty glass. "Drinking alone?" She forced a smile. "Just unwinding. Want one?" He studied her for a moment before shaking his head. "Maybe later." Her heart pounded as she willed herself to stay calm. Upstairs, Nathan remained hidden, just a few feet away from disaster. Marcus exhaled and moved toward the living room, dropping his briefcase on the couch. "I was thinking we could get away this weekend," he said, loosening his shirt cuffs. "Spend some time together. Just us." Olivia's stomach twisted. Guilt threatened to creep in, but she shoved it down. "That sounds nice," she lied. His smile was genuine, and for a brief second, she saw the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. The man who had once made her feel safe. But that man was a ghost now, buried under years of silence and distance. "Let's talk more in the morning," Marcus said, heading toward the stairs. "I'm exhausted." Her breath caught. "You're going to bed?" He paused, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, why?" Olivia forced a casual shrug. "No reason. Just thought we could watch something together." He smiled, shaking his head. "Rain check." She nodded, her muscles taut as he disappeared upstairs. She waited, straining to hear his movements. The sound of the shower running sent relief flooding through her. She rushed back to the guest room, opening the door just enough to see Nathan pacing. That was too close, he muttered. I know. He grabbed her hand. We need to end this. Her chest tightened. You don't mean that. His eyes were filled with something she couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or something deeper. Olivia, this is dangerous. If he finds out. He won't. Nathan sighed, shaking his head. You really think you can keep this up forever? A lump formed in her throat. I don't know. But she did know. This wasn't sustainable. Secrets had a way of unraveling, and theirs was hanging by a thread. The next morning, Marcus left early as usual, pressing a distracted kiss to her forehead before walking out the door. Nathan was already gone, slipping out in the early hours before dawn. Olivia stood in the kitchen, staring at her reflection in the window. The woman who stared back at her was a stranger. Someone reckless. Someone desperate. Her phone vibrated again. Nathan, we need to talk. Meet me tonight. She exhaled, fingers tightening around the device. She had spent her life constructing a perfect facade, but the cracks were spreading, and she had no idea how to stop them. Olivia woke up in the sterile white hospital room, her body aching with each shallow breath. The soft beeping of the monitors echoed in the silence, a cruel reminder that she had survived the chaos she had caused. A dull pain throbbed in her side where the bullets had struck, and her wrist was secured to the metal bed frame with a single handcuff. Her mind was a whirlwind of questions. How long had she been unconscious? Had they saved Marcus? Was the police officer standing at the door the only one watching her, or were there more waiting outside? She tried to lift her head, but the effort was met with sharp pain, forcing her back onto the pillow. The door creaked open, and a man in a well-tailored suit entered. His graying hair was neatly combed, and his sharp eyes studied her like a puzzle he was determined to solve. He exuded authority without effort, his demeanor cold but professional. You're awake, he said, taking a seat beside her bed. I'm Detective Thomas Wilson. I've been leading your case since the moment you left your home. Olivia didn't respond, her throat dry, her mind still piecing together the events leading to her capture. You were lucky, Thomas continued. Our officers acted fast, and the medical team saved your life. But make no mistake, you're in deep trouble. Olivia forced herself to stay calm. She wasn't naive enough to beg for mercy, but she needed to understand her situation before deciding her next move. How long have I been here? She rasped, her voice weaker than she expected. 3 days, Thomas answered. You went into surgery the night you were brought in. Lost a lot of blood, but you're stable now. Your reckless escape caused quite a scene. We have witnesses, security footage, and more than enough evidence to ensure you won't be leaving this facility as a free woman. She swallowed hard. 3 days. Enough time for everything to unravel. Marcus? She asked finally. Thomas tilted his head slightly. Alive. Still in critical condition, but the doctors are optimistic. A small breath of relief escaped her lips before she caught herself. He was supposed to be gone. That had been the plan. No loose ends, no second chances. But now, with Marcus surviving, everything was complicated. Thomas studied her expression. Regretted. Her fingers twitched. Not in the way he thought. She regretted the failure, not the act itself. You should know, he added. We've spoken to Jasmine, your secretary. She was very cooperative. Your financials, your personal connections, even your relationship with Nathan Collins. We have it all. Whatever secrets you thought you could keep, they're out in the open now. A sharp pang of anger flared in Olivia's chest. Jasmine had always been loyal, at least that's what she thought. But in the face of legal trouble, loyalty was nothing compared to self-preservation. Thomas leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Olivia, what was the endgame? You had money, a car, and a head start. Did you really think you could outrun this? She remained silent. Your situation is bad, but you still have a choice, he continued. Cooperate, and maybe, just maybe, the court will show some leniency. Keep fighting, and you'll be looking at a much harsher sentence. Olivia met his gaze. She had been fighting her whole life. There was no reason to stop now. Thomas sighed. I figured as much. I'll give you some time to think it over. He stood, signaling to the officer at the door. You'll be transferred to county jail once the doctors clear you. As he walked out, Olivia stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. The game wasn't over yet. If Marcus was still alive, that meant there was still a way to turn things around. But she had to act fast. Across town, Thomas and his partner Ryan sat in their office, combing through evidence. The case was clear-cut. Motive, opportunity, and witness statements all pointed to Olivia's guilt. But something didn't sit right with Thomas. This wasn't just a random crime of passion, he muttered, flipping through the reports. Olivia planned this. The safe was emptied. Her getaway was too well thought out. She was ready to disappear. Please like and subscribe. I need your support so badly. Ryan nodded. Yeah, but she got sloppy. The moment she walked into that motel, she left a trail. And shooting at a pedestrian? That was reckless. Thomas tapped a file on his desk. Exactly. Olivia isn't reckless. She's calculating, which means she didn't expect Marcus to survive. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You think there's more to this? Thomas exhaled. There's always more. We need to talk to Marcus. Later that evening, Thomas arrived at the hospital. Marcus was awake, though weak. His face was pale, his breathing labored, but he managed a faint smirk as Thomas approached. Detective, Marcus greeted weakly. Figured I'd see you sooner or later. Thomas pulled up a chair. I won't waste your time. We need to talk about Olivia. Marcus's expression darkened. She did this to me, didn't she? Thomas nodded. She thought you were gone. If you have anything to say, now's the time. Marcus swallowed hard, wincing as he adjusted himself in bed. She was different, Thomas. Always one step ahead, always calculating. The Olivia I married wasn't the same Olivia I woke up next to every morning. Thomas listened carefully. I knew about the affair, Marcus admitted. Not right away, but I figured it out. She wasn't as careful as she thought. The late nights, the secret phone calls. I played along, pretending not to notice. But I started digging, and what I found. He paused, his expression unreadable. Nathan wasn't just some lover. He was part of something bigger. Thomas frowned. Bigger how? Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Financial fraud, real estate scams. Olivia wasn't just cheating on me. She was running an operation, and Nathan, he was helping her. Thomas leaned forward. Why didn't you go to the police? Marcus's eyes flickered with something close to regret. I was building my case quietly, gathering proof. I planned to confront her when I had everything. But she must have found out. Thomas's stomach twisted. Olivia's attack hadn't been about love or revenge. It had been about self-preservation. She hadn't shot Marcus because of Nathan. She had shot him because he was a threat. Marcus exhaled. You need to find out what else she's hiding, because I promise you, detective, this isn't over. Thomas nodded, a grim realization settling in. Olivia wasn't just a fugitive. She was the key to something much bigger, and he needed to stop her before she found a way to escape again. Olivia lay awake in her hospital bed, her mind racing despite the exhaustion gripping her body. She had heard the officers talking outside her room. Her transfer to county jail was scheduled for the next morning. Time was running out. She knew what awaited her if she didn't act. Prison, a trial, a ruined legacy. But she wasn't the type to accept defeat. Not yet. Her mind sharpened with one singular thought. She needed to escape. Meanwhile, at the police station, Detective Thomas Wilson sat at his desk, the weight of the case pressing on him. The deeper he dug, the clearer the truth became. Olivia's crimes went far beyond an affair gone wrong. The financial records Marcus had mentioned, they painted a damning picture. Real estate deals that didn't add up, wire transfers to untraceable offshore accounts, fake businesses set up under different names. Olivia had carefully built a financial empire through deception, and Marcus had discovered it too late.
Thomas exhaled. Olivia wasn't just facing charges for attempted murder. She was on the verge of being exposed for something much bigger, and that made her dangerous. The night was quiet. Too quiet. Olivia had been waiting, counting the minutes until the night shift officers switched duties. That moment of transition was always the weakest point in security. The officer guarding her stepped out to speak with his replacement. It was now or never. Summoning every ounce of strength, Olivia yanked her fore out, biting her lip to keep from making a sound. She reached under the blanket where she had hidden a thin, sharp piece of metal she had pried from the bed frame. Her hands trembled, slick with sweat, as she picked at the handcuffs lock. Click! It popped open. Her heart pounded as she forced herself up, her stitches protesting. Every second counted. She stumbled toward the window, her only escape. 4th floor. Risky, but survivable. She braced herself and pushed it open. Back at the station, Thomas stared at his screen as new information loaded. His contact in financial crimes had just sent him a report. A new withdrawal had been made from one of Olivia's hidden accounts. Thomas's stomach tightened. She was planning something. "Ryan, come on," he grabbed his coat. "We need to get to the hospital now." Olivia took a deep breath. No room for fear. She climbed onto the ledge and looked down. The alleyway was her best shot. A dumpster sat below. If she angled her jump just right, it could break her fall. She inhaled sharply and let go. The wind roared in her ears. She braced for impact. Crash. Pain shot through her body as she hit the dumpster, rolling off onto the pavement. She was alive but injured. No time to stop. She staggered to her feet, pulling her hood up and limping toward the nearest street. A car was waiting. The driver, Nathan. She collapsed into the passenger seat. "Drive." Nathan didn't hesitate. Tires screeched as they sped into the night. Too late. Thomas's car skidded to a stop outside the hospital. Sirens blared. Officers were already swarming the area, but as Thomas ran inside, his radio crackled. "Wilson, she's gone." His hands clenched into fists. "Find her. Now." But he already knew. Olivia had planned this all along, and if she had gotten this far, she wasn't going down without a fight. The city was alive with flashing lights. Sirens blared through the night as officers scrambled to track Olivia down. Every officer in the district had her description. Every exit, every major road was being watched. But Olivia had always been good at slipping away. Nathan's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as he sped down the empty road. "What now?" he asked, glancing at Olivia, who was holding her injured side. She was pale, her face slick with sweat. The fall had taken its toll. "We get out of the city," she said through gritted teeth. "Head south." Nathan hesitated. "You're hurt. You need a hospital." "No hospitals. No stopping. Just drive." Nathan exhaled sharply but obeyed, his foot pressing harder on the gas. They had a small window before every exit was locked down. Detective Thomas Wilson wasn't willing to lose her. He stood in the hospital room, staring at the open window. Her escape had been reckless but calculated. His phone rang. "Wilson, we got a hit." A car matching Nathan's description was spotted heading south on Route 19. Thomas grabbed his keys. "Get all available units on it." "She's not getting away." The further they drove, the more Nathan felt his nerves unraveling. He had trusted Olivia, believed her, helped her. But the truth had come out. The news reports were everywhere. The financial fraud, the attempted murder charge, the lies. And yet, here he was, still driving her to safety. "Why did you do it?" he finally asked. Olivia's eyes flickered to him, but she didn't answer. Because she knew the real answer wouldn't change anything. She had built an empire on deception, and now she was trying to survive the collapse. Nathan saw them first. The flashing lights ahead. Police. They were setting up a roadblock. No way through. No way back. Trapped. Olivia's pulse quickened. Nathan slowed the car. "This is it." Olivia wasn't ready to surrender. Her fingers gripped the door handle. She had one last move left. Thomas stood at the blockade, his heart hammering as he watched the car roll to a stop. The officers raised their weapons, but Thomas held up his hand. "Hold your fire." The door opened. Olivia stepped out, weak, injured, but still defiant. Thomas took a step forward. "It's over, Olivia." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she closed her eyes and raised her hands, surrendering. Because deep down, she knew there was nowhere left to run. Epilogue. The truth comes out. A month later, Thomas sat in his office, reading the final report. Court. Olivia's trial was set. The evidence was overwhelming. She wouldn't be walking free. Nathan had turned himself in, cutting a deal in exchange for his testimony. And Marcus? He had survived. His recovery was slow, but he was alive. Justice had won. But as Thomas closed the file, he couldn't shake one thought. People like Olivia always found a way back. And if that day ever came, he'd be ready. Thank you for watching Exposed and Broken. I am affected by infidelity. Help me buy a house by watching Exposed and Broken.